Tonight, how President Trump may try to get around a judge's order that specified no National Guard troops in Portland and renewed hope for an end to the war in Gaza. We begin tonight with President Trump's plan to deploy the Oregon National Guard to Portland, but a Trump-appointed federal judge blocked the move, saying it blurred the lines between civilian and military rule. The White House then sent California's National Guard to Portland instead. All this amid rising tensions in Chicago, with ICE agents opening fire after they say protesters surrounded them. Urgent peace talks are set to begin in hours in Egypt, where delegations from Israel and Hamas will consider President Trump's plan for ending the war in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says we could be just days away from the release of the remaining hostages, but there's a lot to still be ironed out, including whether Hamas will agree to lay down its arms. Also tonight, the government shutdown. The White House is now preparing to impose mass layoffs. And while Republicans and Democrats are pointing fingers at each other for the standoff, new polling indicates who Americans blame. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez hospitalized after being stabbed in Indianapolis. Now he's facing charges. What authorities are saying about the altercation? A tragic accident over Tennessee. A tandem skydiver was separated from his instructor. That skydiver was rescued from a tree. The instructor fell to his death. A beach house believed to be owned by a judge goes up in flames with multiple injuries reported. The investigation into what happened. The frantic rescue effort on Mount Everest, where more than 1,000 people have been trapped by a blizzard. And America Strong tonight, a father bursting with pride and a life-changing phone call to his son.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Lindsay Davis. We begin tonight with a setback for the Trump administration. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the administration's attempt to federalize and deploy the Oregon National Guard to Portland, saying such a move risks blurring the line between civil and military rule. In her Saturday night ruling, the judge said that President Trump's description of chaos in that city is, quote, simply untethered to the facts. The Trump administration is planning to appeal that decision. Overnight, protesters and police clashed outside of an immigration and customs enforcement facility. The White House is now sending California National Guard troops to Portland, and California is planning to sue. Tensions are escalating in Chicago, where immigration officers shot a woman who they say was armed. She, along with other protesters, allegedly rammed and boxed in agents. This as the president is deploying 300 Illinois National Guard troops to protect federal officers and assets in Chicago. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is accusing the president of creating a war zone. ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang leads us off.
Tonight, growing alarm over President Trump's escalating crime crackdown, testing the limits of presidential power.
We send in the National Guard. You know what? We send in what's ever necessary. People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well. We're doing it like nobody's ever done it before.
A federal judge on Saturday blocking the president's attempt to send troops into Portland. The federal judge who Trump himself appointed, saying the administration's descriptions of chaos in the city is simply untethered to the facts. The protests in Portland have not been significantly violent or disruptive and are insufficient to federalize the National Guard in the state, writing, "This is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law." At a gathering of top military leaders this week, Trump suggested using so-called dangerous cities in the U.S. as training grounds for soldiers.
We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms.
I pressed the president this morning about the judge's ruling.
Will you follow the judge's order in Portland?
We're going to look at that. It was amazing. Portland is burning to the ground.
Then hours later, California Governor Gavin Newsom says the Trump administration sent 300 members of the California National Guard to Oregon, calling it a breathtaking abuse of power, saying the commander-in-chief is using the U.S. military as a political weapon against American citizens. The public cannot stay silent in the face of such reckless and authoritarian conduct by the President of the United States. Newsom vowing to take this fight to court. Tensions also flaring in Chicago. Federal officials say an ICE agent shot and injured a woman after agents were allegedly rammed by vehicles and boxed in. 2 people, including that woman, have since been arrested. The president now authorizing 300 National Guard troops to protect federal officers and assets in Chicago against Governor Pritzker's will. Pritzker blasting Trump's crackdown in his state.
They're raiding neighborhoods where instead of going after the bad guys, they're just picking up people who are brown and black and then checking their credentials.
You say you're targeting the worst of the worst, but Governor Pritzker says that most of the people ICE has taken in his state have no criminal history, no criminal convictions. So which is it?
He's wrong. D.C. went from a hellhole to a safe place. It took 12 days to solve the problem. 12 days. And we're going to do that in Chicago. We're going to do that in Portland. Now,
And Lindsay, Governor Newsom says California's National Guard troops are already on their way to Portland as Oregon's Attorney General prepares to sue. But tonight, the White House is defending the president's move, saying that it is within his authority to send in the troop to protect federal officers in Portland. Lindsay?
Selena Wang from the White House, thank you. Overseas now to the eve of those critical ceasefire talks between Hamas and Israel in Egypt. Dozens of protesters gathered in Jerusalem today holding cardboard images of the Israeli hostages in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a hostage release could be announced this week. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell is in Jerusalem tonight with the late-breaking details.
Hours before Israel, Hamas and the U.S. sit down for negotiations to end the nearly 2-year war in Gaza, Israeli forces launching a new wave of airstrikes. Explosions across the Gaza Strip fill the sky with smoke. This man carrying his lifeless son out of the rubble. It comes as indirect talks get underway in Egypt tomorrow. President Trump voicing optimism about the chances for a deal, but warns Hamas will face complete obliteration if it refuses to give up control of Gaza.
it's a great deal for Israel. It's a great deal for the entire Arab world, Muslim world, and world. So we're very happy about it.
In the U.S. brokered peace proposal, Hamas agreeing it would hand over the administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body with support from Arab nations. But sticking points still remain. Secretary of State Marco Rubio telling our Martha Raddatz the real challenge will be the issue of disarming Hamas.
There are a lot of opportunities here for whoever wants to sabotage it to do so, and that includes Hamas, by the way, or elements linked to Hamas.
Overnight, families of the hostages rallying in Tel Aviv as Netanyahu says he believes hostages could be released in the coming days.
When will I see my brothers again? We are suspended between hope and dread. We have lived through Hamas lies before. We cannot let another deal collapse.
Lindsay, much now hinges on how willing both Israel and Hamas are to compromise, but also how willing, how prepared President Trump is to force the two sides together to try and end this war. Lindsay?
Ian, thank you. Back here in the U.S., congressional leaders are still at odds over the government shutdown. Each side blames the other for the impasse. This is thousands of federal employees are working without pay and others are bracing for possible termination. Here's ABC's Alex Perchet.
Tonight, 5 days into the government shutdown, the Trump administration is preparing to follow through on a threat to start mass layoffs and make permanent federal spending cuts in an attempt to pressure unwavering Democrats.
President Trump and Russ Vought are lining things up and getting ready to act if they have to, but hoping that they don't.
President Trump has already frozen federal funds for projects in 16 states that voted blue in the last election. Democrats have drawn a red line on health care, unwilling to fund the government unless Republicans repeal cuts to Medicaid and extend Affordable Care Act subsidies. Republican leadership has signaled a willingness to negotiate on health care, but only if Democrats agree to reopen the government first. The blame game, however, is bipartisan.
I don't care about the blame game. I care about Americans losing their health insurance, rates of death going up, hospitals being crushed, medical services ending in places in rural America. This is a tsunami of Donald Trump's creation.
The reason the government is closed is because Chuck Schumer and 43 of his Democrat colleagues in the Senate have decided now to vote multiple times to keep the government closed.
A new poll from the Washington Post found 47% of Americans blame President Trump and Republicans for the shutdown, compared to 30% who blame Democrats. But a large swath of Americans, 23%, remain undecided on the issue. Roughly 4 million federal workers could go without a paycheck during this shutdown. Workers like Omar Al-Jassiras, who was furloughed from his job at the Department of Labor last week.
One of the biggest concerns isn't so much today, tomorrow, but it's what's going to happen in 2 weeks after we receive our next paycheck.
Well, and Lindsay, in places like Atlanta, they're preparing for this shutdown to continue. The city will start to offer free parking and meal vouchers to TSA agents, part of that group of federal workers forced to work without a paycheck during the shutdown. Lindsay?
Alex Prochet for us. Thank you. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez is in stable condition after being stabbed in Indianapolis. The Fox Sports analyst is also facing multiple charges, including battery and public intoxication. Authorities say he got into an altercation with a 69-year-old man. Here's ABC's Rena Roy with what we're learning tonight.
Tonight, we're learning new details in what prosecutors are calling a physical altercation that sent Fox Sports analyst and former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez to an Indianapolis hospital in critical condition.
We need a marked car to come down to Maryland, right across from the convention center, and lock down this alleyway.
Authorities say the incident unfolded just after midnight Saturday in a downtown alleyway just blocks from Lucas Oil Stadium. Prosecutors allege Sanchez approached a 69-year-old box truck driver and escalated a dispute about the victim's parked vehicle. According to the probable cause affidavit, after Sanchez allegedly shoved the driver believed he was now in physical danger, grabbed his pepper spray, and sprayed Mr. Sanchez in the face. The affidavit says Sanchez again advanced towards the driver, saying the driver thought, "This guy's trying to kill me." So he pulled his knife, and when Mr. Sanchez came at him, ultimately striking him multiple times. Police say when a detective tried to get a statement from Sanchez at the hospital, Mr. Sanchez said he did not know who did this to him or where it happened. Sanchez is now facing multiple criminal charges, including battery resulting in injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle. The Marion County prosecutor saying this incident should never have happened, and as with any case, will follow the facts and the law wherever they lead. The incident addressed today during Fox NFL Sunday.
Friday night in Indianapolis, one of our team members, Mark Sanchez, was involved in an incident that, to be honest, we're all still trying to wrap our heads around. At this time, our thoughts and prayers are with Mark, his family, and all those involved.
And Fox Sports sent us a statement on Saturday before the charges were announced, saying Sanchez is in stable condition. Tonight, telling us they have no further comment. Lindsay?
Rena, thank you. Now to that skydiving tragedy in Tennessee. The instructor is dead, but another man was rescued after a tandem jump went horribly wrong. Authorities say that survivor was stuck in the tree, suspended high above the ground for several hours. The FAA is now investigating. ABC's Faith Abube has more.
Tonight, authorities investigating a tandem skydive in Tennessee that went horribly wrong, leaving an instructor dead and another man stuck in a tree for hours.
I saw a reserve chute deploy, and it is probably 1.5 miles northwest of the field.
The Nashville Fire Department sharing these images from the dramatic rescue Saturday. Arborist Romulus Rude says he cut down a tree to help rescuers.
They strapped like 3 or 4 ladders together, tied them together to get up.
Police say the skydiver became lodged in a wooded area after he was separated at the plane from a tandem rig with an instructor.
The harness got stuck on the side of the step. Then I had to shake and move the rudders around a bit and maneuver them, and then they were able to get free.
Our crews entered into what was a very wooded terrain area that had lots of obstacles to overcome.
Firefighters eventually used a pulley system to get him safely to the ground. Police say the 35-year-old instructor is presumed to have fallen without a parachute. A police helicopter later locating his body about 1 mile away. He did not survive. Authorities still investigating what caused the deadly incident.
And Lindsay, the owner of the company behind that jump, Go Nashville, Go Skydive Nashville, telling me this afternoon that they're cooperating with the investigation while also supporting the victims and their loved ones. Lindsay.
Just a horrible story. Faith, thank you. Overseas now to young people turning digital discontent into a real-world movement. Gen Z protesters are flooding the streets of Morocco across dozens of cities, demanding accountability and change. Similar protests are also happening in Madagascar, Kenya, Peru, and Nepal. Let's bring in ABC's Marcus Moore. Marcus, what's fueling these protests?
Well, Lindsay, these demonstrations have been ongoing in Morocco for 8 straight days now. Tens of thousands of young people taking to the streets of the capital and other cities, calling for an end to government corruption and for health care reform. They also demand that government spending be redirected, saying they should spend less money on new stadiums for the FIFA World Cup, which is set for 2030, and more on public services. A group in Morocco known as Gen Z 212, named after the country code, is behind these demonstrations. And while they started out peaceful, some of these protests have turned violent. Several people killed and cars and buildings set on fire. Lindsay, similar demonstrations have erupted in Madagascar and Kenya. And something else remarkable about these protests is that they have been largely organized on social media sites like Discord and TikTok. In Morocco, the group is calling on the king to address these issues and install a new government. Lindsay.
Marcus, thank you. Next tonight, Pope Leo is urging Catholics around the world to embrace immigrants. This just days after the first American pontiff appeared to criticize the Trump administration for its, quote, inhuman treatment of immigrants. The Chicago native told the crowd gathered at St. Peter's Square for Mass today that immigrants should not be treated with, quote, the coldness of indifference or the stigma of discrimination. And there's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday, including the urgent rescue effort on Mount Everest after people were trapped in a blizzard. And investigators push for answers after a house believed to be owned by a judge went up in flames. Next tonight, an urgent rescue effort on the eastern slope of Mount Everest in Tibet. More than 1,000 people have been trapped by a blizzard at 16,000 feet. Roads are blocked. Rescue teams have been sent in to clear the snow. That same weather system brought heavy rains across the border in Nepal. 47 people have been killed in flash floods and landslides. In South Carolina, an investigation is underway into a fire at a house believed to be owned by a state judge. The fire tore through the home in Edisto Beach on Saturday. 3 people were rushed to a hospital for treatment. Their conditions are not known. That home is believed to be owned by South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein. Authorities have not determined what caused the fire. When we come back, one of the biggest drugstore chains is closed for good, and the stunning sight that had everyone looking up. To the Index, it was once one of America's largest pharmacy chains, but now Rite Aid is no more. The last of its stores closed on Friday. Rite Aid had filed for bankruptcy protection twice in the past 2 years. The company had already sold most of its pharmacy services to rivals, including CVS and Walgreens. Founded in 1962, at one time, Rite Aid operated more than 5,000 stores. Next, the Las Vegas Aces are a step closer to their 3rd WNBA title in 4 years. In a game right here on ABC, the Aces beat the Phoenix Mercury 91-78 to take a 2-game-to-none lead in the best-of-7 finals. They were led by Jackie Young with 32 points and league MVP Asia Wilson with 28. Game 3 is Wednesday night in Phoenix at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And a spectacular sight today in the skies over Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hundreds of hot air balloons took off in the city's International Balloon Fiesta. High winds kept them grounded on Saturday, but today the weather was perfect for the mass ascension, a multicolor extravaganza with balloons of every size and shape as far as the eye could see. When we come back, the phone call that had a veteran firefighter crying tears of joy. Finally, America strong, a father, a son, and their magical moment. Tulsa firefighter Frank Brisset is known for being steady and self-controlled.
I'm normally not a very emotional guy.
So when Frank called to tell his son Brennan that he'd been accepted into the next class of Tulsa firefighters, no one expected this reaction.
I've got some.
Fire Chief Michael Baker stepped in to break the good news.
Still interested in being a Tulsa firefighter?
Yes, sir, absolutely. That was the first time I've ever seen my dad cry in my life.
That phone call video went viral, reposted across the country and around the world.
I've had people from literally around the country and from other countries that have messaged me and congratulated me and my son.
Frank says the phone call was about more than just sharing the news.
He's being called to join a brotherhood to serve others.
Frank instilled that deep commitment to help others since Brennan was born, as part of a helicopter search and rescue team and as a flight medic in Iraq. Brennan is now following in Frank's footsteps, working toward his goal for almost a year.
Just a small few get accepted into the academy.
Frank's now hopeful this may be the beginning of a family tradition.
Maybe someday I'll have a grandson that decides he wants to be a firefighter as well.
In his blood. Thanks for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis. Good night.
David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. And now, ABC's World News Tonight has won the Emmy for Best Live News Program for the third year in a row.